Astute Quotations, Part 18. In order to train the tiger, one must remain close to it. Chinese proverb. Talk doesn't boil rice. Chinese proverb. The closer to the source, the clearer the water. Swedish proverb. All women are stimulated by the news that any wife has left any husband. Novelist Anthony Powell. Take me or leave me, or, as is the usual order of things, both. Humorist writer Dorothy Parker. Brevity is the soul of lingerie. Dorothy Parker. That woman speaks 18 languages and can't say no in any of them. Dorothy Parker. He can speak 7 languages, but he can't hit in any of them. Teammate of former Major League catcher Mo Berg, who went on to become a spy for the U.S. in World War II. There are no frigid women, only poor lovers. French saying. When women go wrong, men go right after them. Mae West. Is that a gun in your pocket, or are you just happy to see me? Attributed to Mae West. Treat a whore like a lady, and a lady like a whore. Playwright Wilson Meisner, 1876 to 1933. You can't write a good song about a whorehouse unless you've been in one. Folk singer Woody Guthrie. You see, madame, I'm an honest man of 5 feet, 9 inches. Spoken to Harriet Wilson, English courtesan, in 1825. To which Wilson replied, Madame is persuaded of your 5 feet, but she is not so sure of your 9 inches. Women inadvertently teach men not to listen to them. Lonnie Barbach of the University of California Medical School at San Francisco. She's leaving home after living alone for so many years. Lennon-McCartney. Now they know how many holes it takes to fill the Albert Hall. Lennon-McCartney. If you go carrying pictures of Chairman Mao, you ain't gonna make it with anyone anyhow. Lennon-McCartney, whose lyrics make Nobel Prize winner Bob Dylan look like a Girl Scout. Forget all about equality. Let's play master and servant. Depeche Mode. If you've got a blacklist, I want to be on it. Folk singer Billy Bragg. Whoever said orgasm wasn't important for a woman was obviously a man. From The Height Report by Sheer Height. It is one of the superstitions of mankind to have imagined that virginity could be a virtue. Voltaire. Don't sell the steak, sell the sizzle. Adman Elmer Wheeler. Good pitching will always stop good hitting, and vice versa. Baseball manager Casey Stengel. The best trades are the ones you don't make. Bill Veeck, former baseball owner. If you get 3 strikes, even the best lawyer in the world can't get you off. Bill Veeck. I have discovered in 20 years of moving around a ballpark that the knowledge of the game is usually in inverse proportion to the price of the seats. Bill Veeck. If you can't explain your physics to a barmaid, it is probably not very good physics. Physicist Ernest Rutherford. Far better an approximate answer to the right question, which is often vague, than an exact answer to the wrong question, which can always be made precise. John Tukey, mathematician, statistician. Malefactors of great wealth have arrogantly ignored the public welfare. Theodore Roosevelt. Without censorship, things can get terribly confused in the public mind. General William Westmoreland of the Vietnam era. Who can refute a sneer? Theologian William Paley, 1743 to 1805. Because society would rather we always wore a pretty face, women have been trained to cut off anger. Nancy Friday, pioneering writer on women's sexuality. More men have been elected between sundown and sunup than were ever elected between sunup and sundown. Humorist Will Rogers. Space is almost infinite. As a matter of fact, we think it is infinite. Former Vice President Dan Quayle, who was probably speaking of the space between his ears. The battle for the mind of Ronald Reagan was like the trench warfare of World War I. Never have so many fought so hard for such barren terrain. Journalist and speechwriter Peggy Noonan. On a related note, I'd rather have a bottle in front of me than ever have a frontal lobotomy. Attributed to singer Tom Waits. As we know, there are known knowns. There are things we know we know. We also know there are known unknowns. That is to say, we know there are some things we do not know. But there are also unknown unknowns, the ones we don't know we don't know. Neocon Donald Rumsfeld in a press briefing in 2002. Whom the gods would destroy, they first make mad with power. Historian Charles Beard. Women talk at great length about penises. Get a bunch of girls together and there's no stopping them. Out come all the penis stories they know, measurements and all the rest. Margaret Powell from The Treasure Upstairs, a book about life as a servant in the 1920s. Powell's work was an inspiration for the TV series Downton Abbey. The bigger a man's gun, the smaller his doodle wick. Calamity Jane, 1852 to 1903. A society based on the letter of the law and never reaching any higher fails to take advantage of the full range of human possibilities. Alexander Solzhenitsyn. The eternal error men make is imagining that happiness consists in the gratification of their wishes. Tolstoy, a very wise man. Little wonder nearly every town in Russia has a Tolstoy street. It was the supreme expression of the mediocrity of the apparatus that Stalin himself rose to his position. Historian Anthony Trollope. Don't cheer, boys. Those poor devils are dying. Naval Officer John Woodward Phillip at the Battle of Santiago, 1898. When a man points a finger at someone else, he should remember that 4 of his fingers are pointing to himself. Attorney Louis Nizer. He's dead, Jim. Classic line from Star Trek. Resistance is useless, from Doctor Who. I stopped believing in Santa Claus when I was 6. Mother took me to see him in a department store, and he asked for my autograph. Shirley Temple, Hollywood child star. One can acquire everything in solitude except character. Stendhal. I know of only one rule. Style cannot be too clear, too simple. Stendhal. If you don't know what it is, don't mess with it. Jazz pianist Fats Waller. The best way to make money is not to have money as your primary goal. I've seen great people come into the business world primarily motivated to make money. Almost without exception, they failed. Ross Perot. The real test of a comedian is whether you laugh at him before he opens his mouth. Drama critic George Jean Nathan. He was a bold man that first ate an oyster. Jonathan Swift. Listening, not imitation, may be the sincerest form of flattery. Dr. Joyce Brothers, psychologist. Love comes when manipulation stops. Joyce Brothers. The ideal client is the very wealthy man in very great trouble. Attorney John Sterling, 1844 to 1918. I demolish my bridges behind me. Then there is no choice but forward. Norwegian explorer Fridtjof Nansen. Let us endeavor to live, so that when we come to die, even the undertaker will be sorry. Mark Twain. The railroads are not run for the benefit of the dear public. That cry is nonsense. They are built for men who invest their money and expect to get a fair percentage of the same. Business tycoon William Vanderbilt, 1821 to 1885. Give me a laundry list and I'll set it to music. Rossini. You can't learn technique and then try to become a painter. Techniques are a result. My painting does not come from the easel. Jackson Pollock. The dogmas of the quiet past are inadequate to the stormy present. Abraham Lincoln. One threatens the innocent who spares the guilty. Jurist Edward Coke, 1552 to 1634. The thief or swindler who has gained great wealth by his delinquency has a better chance than the small thief of escaping the rigorous penalty of the law. Thorstein Veblen, economist, 1857 to 1929. There are few things that so touch us with instinctive revulsion as a breach of decorum. Thorstein Veblen. All business sagacity reduces itself, in the last analysis, to judicious use of sabotage. Thorstein Veblen. The outcome of any serious research can only be to make two questions grow, where only one question grew before. Veblen. Every move creates a weakness. Chessmaster Siegbert Tarrasch, 1862 to 1934. The bigger a man's head gets, the easier it is to fill his shoes. Attributed to Henry Courtney, winner of the Congressional Medal of Honor. I hate flowers. I paint them because they're cheaper than models and they don't move. Georgia O'Keeffe. Anxiety is love's greatest killer. Anais Nin. You can't tell how much spirit a team has until it starts losing. Rocky Calavito, Cleveland Indians. Russia has two generals in whom she can confide. Generals January and February. Tsar Nicholas I. The only compliment I paid her was, "You sweat less than any fat girl I know." Humorist poet Ogden Nash. Got to lose control before you take control. Patti Smith. His rotundity, derogatory nickname for a portly John Adams. The time not to become a father is 18 years before a war. E.B. White. You can't rob a bank on charm and personality. Bank robber Willie Sutton. There it was, South Ozone National Bank, looking as though it had been waiting for me. Willie Sutton. It is a rather pleasant experience to be alone in a bank at night. Willie Sutton. All you have to do is recognize an opportunity. Mobster Meyer Lansky. My rackets are run on strictly American lines, and they're going to stay that way. Al Capone. Gentlemen, you have taken to cheat me. I will not sue you, for law takes too long. I will ruin you. Business magnate Cornelius Vanderbilt, 1794 to 1877. I was thinking that the rocket has 20,000 components, and each was made by the lowest bidder. Astronaut John Glenn. The Republican Party had to be dragged kicking and screaming into the 20th century. Adlai Stevenson. A smile is the twin sister of seriousness. Plato. I had the radio on. Marilyn Monroe asked whether she had posed for a calendar in 1947 with nothing on. Chanel number 5. Marilyn Monroe, when asked what she wore in bed. To acquire style, begin by affecting none. William Strunk, Jr., author of The Elements of Style, 1918. The adjective hasn't been built, that can pull a weak or inaccurate noun out of a tight place. Strunk. To some people, the fact that I am not married or don't have children would be the reason I have written a book on punctuation. Lynn Truss, author of Eats, Shoots, and Leaves. I married Miss Wright. I just didn't know her first name was Always. Comedian Red Skelton. I actually don't meet very many men because they're afraid to approach me. Fashion model Claudia Schiffer. Marriage is always a good idea at the time. Werner Erhard. What do women want? A guy they can't drive crazy. There aren't many around. Actor Orson Bean. Men who do not make advances to women are apt to become victims to women who make advances to them. Journalist Walter Bagehot, 1826 to 1877. The number of transistors in a densely integrated circuit doubles every 2 years. Moore's Law, coined by Intel co-founder Gordon Moore in 1965. People with broken lives often come from lives with broken promises. Helen Prigine, Catholic nun and activist against the death penalty. My idea of fast food is a mallard. Ted Nugent, one of the biggest morons in rock music history. If it makes the slightest difference to you what it costs, don't try it. Financier J.P. Morgan, when someone asked for advice about buying a yacht. The God I believe in isn't short of cash, mister. Bono of U2 commenting on television evangelicals. Women belong to the highest bidder. Napoleon. A tough lesson in life that one has to learn is that not everybody wishes you well. CBS newscaster Dan Rather. I think we've got a bunch of thugs here, Dan. Newsman Walter Cronkite at the Democratic Convention in 1968 after Rather got roughed up on the floor. Age and treachery will overcome youth and skill. Anonymous. I can't believe I ate the whole thing. Classic advertising line from Alka-Seltzer. Men enter local politics solely as a result of being unhappily married. Naval historian C. Northcote Parkinson. The effectiveness of a telephone conversation is in inverse proportion to the time spent on it. Parkinson. Delay is the deadliest form of denial. Parkinson. There is more to talking than just words. Humphrey Bogart. They'll nail anyone who ever scratched his ass during the national anthem. Humphrey Bogart, regarding the House Un-American Affairs Committee. It is always pleasant to be urged to do something on the ground that one can do it well. Philosopher George Santayana. More of the brain is devoted to movement than to language. Neurologist Oliver Sacks, author of The Man Who Mistook His Wife for a Hat. The thinker makes a great mistake when he asks about cause and effect. They both together make up an indivisible phenomena. And that's from Goethe. I remember in college saying to myself, who is this Goethe guy they keep writing about? The man who occupies the first place seldom plays the principal part. Goethe. A leaf that is destined to grow large is full of grooves and wrinkles at the start. Goethe. I like the moment when I break a man's ego. Chess Grandmaster Bobby Fischer. No two languages are ever sufficiently similar to be considered as representing the same social reality. Edward Sapir, linguist, whether cunning or not. You can always count on a murderer for a fancy prose style. Vladimir Nabokov. Now he is a legend when he would have preferred to be a man. Jackie Kennedy, regarding her husband. We must free ourselves of the hope that the sea will ever rest. We must learn to sail in high winds. Aristotle Onassis. I never threw an illegal pitch. The trouble is, once in a while I toss one that ain't never been seen by this generation. Satchel Paige, perhaps the best pitcher in baseball history. There is no point in being precise if you don't even know what you're talking about. John von Neumann, mathematician, scientist. All these financiers, all the little gnomes in Zurich. Prime Minister Harold Wilson, 1956. Of all manifestations of power, restraint impresses men most. Thucydides, 5th century BC. Language exists only when it is listened to as well as spoken. John Dewey, philosopher, educator. The longer the excuse, the less likely it's the truth. Businessman Robert Half. When my enemies stop hissing, I shall know I'm slipping. Opera singer Maria Callas. The worst enemy is always a man of your own trade. Spanish proverb. It is only after one is in trouble that one realizes how little sympathy and kindness there are in the world. Journalist Nellie Bly, 1864 to 1922. There are no limits to which the powers of privilege will not go to keep the workers in slavery. Mother Jones, 1837 to 1930. Bring out your dead, from Monty Python and the Holy Grail. I ain't afraid to love a man. I ain't afraid to shoot him either. Annie Oakley. When you stop thinking about yourself all the time, a certain sense of repose overtakes you. Singer and songwriter Leonard Cohen. The worst tempered people I ever met were people who knew they were wrong. Playwright Wilson Meisner. Don't talk about yourself. That will be done when you leave. Wilson Meisner. I refuse the compliment that I think like a man. Claire Booth Luce, congresswoman and journalist. Beware lest you lose the substance by grasping at the shadows. Aesop. It is not bright colors, but good drawing that makes figures beautiful. Titian, a Renaissance painter. Don't be afraid of failure. Be afraid of petty success. Actress Maud Adams, 1872 to 1953. Get my swan costume ready. Last words of ballerina Anna Pavlova. And this completes Astute